I want to talk a little bit about entry and exit routes to our stand site locations. We find that right spot. How do we get there? That's kind of what I want to go over. I got a little bit of a little technique that I got a crude drawing of. We'll kind of go through a few of the steps that I use on selecting the right travel routes in and out. I hope this really helps. Go ahead and take a look now and let me know in the comments and stuff at the end what you guys think.
All right, we're talking about the travel routes to our stand location. Earlier in the season, we have to come up with finding the bedding area where these deer are most likely to bed. Now this will change a little bit through the year, but normally we can generalize a certain area for this. And our food source, whether it be a large food plot we have or an ag field, these kind of things will change a little bit, especially when the acorn and stuff start to fall. But if we got this kind of relationship, we can certainly have something to work with. We'll note where our travel routes are, our trails that are running down, and normally we'll find an area to where all those trails kind of run into the one area. This is where I like to put my stands, if I can, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. I got a stand set up here right next to that, and that's an ideal spot. But if I just kind of come through here and I find this, I'm like, oh yeah, and I put a stand up there. Well, that's what a lot of people do, and I want to kind of talk about the travel route to it to see if that's really going to be the best place for your stand. Okay, so we have a barn lot over here where we park our truck, a nice convenient place. And we have this big valley here that we have that's in between our stand location and our barnyard here where we're parking our truck. Okay, so we have a ridge top that runs, right around through here, right around through here somewhere like this. Okay, to walk that ridge top would be a nice easy path for us to take to get to our stand, which makes a whole lot more sense than to drop over the hill into the deep valley and then back up. Want to make it easy on ourselves, that is. And of course, if we know we're going to put a stand here, we're going to want the wind to our face. So if we're expecting all the deer to walk down these trails and come this way, we're going to be looking for a wind that is blowing in our face from the deer, so to be going, to the west. So if we're looking for a wind to be blowing into our face from this direction, that way these deer that are moving through between this bed, and from this food this way like this, not to wind us because the wind is, in our favor, which makes complete sense. To hunt this location, that's what we would need. But we are here to talk about our travel route. So what I do whenever I find a location to where I want my stand, I try to figure out, can I get to this place to hunt? Don't get me wrong, this would be a great place to hunt, but can I get there undetected? Okay, so what I do is, on my way, once I find this location, and on my way back to my truck, I will check the wind with my compass and find out where is that wind blowing from now, So then I'll walk another 25 yards. I'll check the wind again. On my way back, I'll go another 25 yards. And I'll check the wind again. And then another 25 all the way back to my truck to note where that wind is blowing. Now see, whenever I'm checking it with my compass and I come from here and I have the wind in my favor, okay, so now I know the day I hunt this stand with the wind in my favor, this is how the wind flows on my way to the stand if I would follow this path. Now these indicators right here, these are the spots that it's going to throw a flag for me. Whenever I look at that, as I'm checking my wind back and I see that the wind direction changes compared to my compass, okay? because as I'm walking around this ridge top, I notice that this wind is starting to funnel down into this valley. Okay, so that's going to show me a nice swirl right here that I'm fighting against. Okay, which isn't a big deal because the deer aren't bedding here, right? You're right. But what I like to do is I like to go on down another 50 yards down from these areas here. Okay, and then I'll check the wind again in these areas to see where it's going now. 90% of the time, once it gets down, starts drawing down into the valley, that's normally where it's going to go. And what I got to pay attention to is where that valley runs. And in this particular case, it runs right down to the back side of this bedding area. So with that in mind, on my route to my stand, these deer that are in this bed are going to wind me, or have an opportunity to wind me on my travels to my stand. Now, with that in mind, you know, we don't want these deer to be in this bed when we hunt this stand. If this scenario plays out the way I'm talking about, we don't want these deer to be in that bed when I hunt this stand. We're going to want these deer to be in this food plot. Okay, so that gives us a time of day to hunt this stand with this particular wind. Now, if that wind would change the slightest little bit, you know, I'm not going to say slight, but if the wind would change, you know, blowing straight to the south, okay, I want to know what that wind's going to do in the stand to know what winds I can hunt this stand. So from the south, you know, if I get it day early season and I'm out scouting some more and I come up here, well, the wind's blowing at my stand location that I want to hunt to the south today. Well, let's just see what the wind does. I'll follow the same route back, you know, where I'm going to, see what it does. And most of the time, whenever the wind's blowing up out of the valley, until I get down in here, the wind usually doesn't swirl back. But on a ridge top like this, you know, it'll generally carry up a valley. It'll normally carry across. But I've also got to watch for this swirl back down into the food plot if I'm walking a ridge top. Okay. Surveying the area where I plan to hunt does not only mean surveying the ground. We want to survey the wind to figure out our travel routes into the stand. Knowing this, it gives me an opportunity to harvest more mature deer. And also, if I really wanted to hunt there, because, you know, with this kind of scenario, there are a lot of places I can place a stand. You know, I could still get to this location. Maybe I have to find a tree over here somewhere to put a stand. And maybe to get to this location, maybe I'll have to enter from the road over here somewhere and maybe walk down through a valley and up to a valley, you know, to get there. I'm not saying the scenario or the location's a bad location. I'm talking about the travel routes there. Knowing what the wind does in the area where you plan to hunt. You know, just the same where I could run into trouble with this right here being the section of the ridge that my wind is blowing down into the valley. You know, what happens when I get rid of this? What happens if I enter from the road down here and I travel up along and get there this way? Okay. Now I might eliminate my scent blowing down into the bed, before I get to my stand, you know. But then you got to make sure that you're not going to be bumping the deer out of the food. Again, timing your hunt. You know, with a situation like this, when you're hunting in between a bed and a food, you're going to hunt either evening or morning. You know, generally to try to pick one or the other. You know, we're looking for our best opportunities. So keep this in mind. There are 1,000 scenarios in 100 different ways that, you know, that this could play out. But using this technique, finding your stand location, mapping out what the wind does in the area whenever it comes through the valleys, if it swirls on the hilltops, you know, knowing what that wind does from your stand, as well as what it does to your scent cone as you are traveling to that stand. Very important pieces of information, and something just to keep a really close eye on.
You know, and with a good regimen of good scent control on your person, mixed with this kind of planning, your success rate's going to rise, and I really hope it does. I want everybody to have fun, be safe, and get out there.